They're hooked together. See a couple grasshoppers do that one.
Well, after years of planning and restoration, a Vietnam-era jet has finally arrived at its new home, the intersection of Highway 243 and Highway 19 in Canton. CBS 19's Courtney Friedman shows us how much the jet means to the community, especially its veterans.
There's a whole lot of people, and you're looking at them all around us, that not only support this Veterans Memorial, but also the United States of America. And it's a real pleasure. It's my privilege to be here today.
Field McConnell flew the fighter jet for 13 years.
This airplane was at the North Dakota Air National Guard in Fargo, North Dakota from 1977 to 1990, so it was in our unit.
The plane was built in 1964, delivered to the Air Force in 1966, and flew actively from 66 to 91.
This particular airplane always got me home, and I'm glad to be able to participate in this aircraft finally finding its final home.
Hello, Field.
Hello, Mike. Nice to be back.
Yes, you've come to Nottingham.
I have, and I've recently been in Telford and some other places, like Germany.
Germany, yes. Because it was a German aircraft had an accident recently.
I don't think it was an accident, but you're correct. It was a German aircraft, and it was German wings, 9525, and the entire media quickly blamed it on Andreas Günther Lubitz, and he was not capable of doing what it is they said he did.
I mean, the media reaction to this was a disgrace, wasn't it? Because the official statement came out and they just jumped on it, and they jumped on him in the most callous way, I thought.
Well, I thought it was very disrespectful, but more important, that's subjective. More importantly, it's inaccurate, and that's objective, because I know that the precision and the speeds and the altitudes and the headings of that aircraft were things that could not have been done by a 27-year-old man with 600 hours.
Right. It's pretty shocking that somebody with 600 hours was left on his own in a cockpit.
I don't want to start an international war, but in the United States of America, a guy with 600 hours would not be flying a mainland airliner.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. So lots of stuff happened on the day, but what happened very quickly was that the cockpit voice recorder was discovered, but the flight data recorder was never discovered. So what was going on there, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of questions about what was going on there, because at one point we heard that a recorder was found, but it was damaged beyond control. Then a couple days later they said, oh no, it's not damaged beyond control. The data is good. I'm going to go back to the 5th of May of 2007 and say that when Kenya Airways Flight 507 crashed departing from Cameroon to Kenya, they got the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, and they sent them both to Montreal. If you think about Malaysia 17, they got the data recorders and they sent them to Holland.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I'm just somebody that spent 40 years flying, but it seems to me whichever country the aircraft crashed in, or whoever owns the aircraft. In the case of Malaysia 17, I believe the recorders should have gone to Malaysia.
Yeah.
Or the Ukraine. That's where the airplane crashed.
Yeah.
But going to a third party, I don't understand it at all, especially if the third party is, I started to say ICAO, which is located in Montreal. Like any other device, and I see a camera right over there, and I see a recorder down here, both of these things can be manipulated with after the fact.
Yes.
We can change the tape completely. We can adjust the video or edit things out. And that's what happens when they take the recorders and they send them to a third party. They're opening the door to the, they would be spoilating evidence. They'd be removing evidence they don't want on the recorders, and they may be replacing it with evidence that would make it it would make it appear that Lubitz really was guilty of what he's accused of doing. I'm 100% sure he was incapable of flying that profile.
Yes. Now, the cockpit voice recorder was discovered, and very quickly there were various leaks which kind of forced the hand of the officials to make a statement about what was on that, and they were magically able to identify exactly what buttons he was pressing and allegedly and so on. And I found that quite an interesting concept, that from a cockpit voice recorder recording in a cockpit that was empty except for one person, that they were able to work out what buttons he was pressing.
Can I explain that as a devil's advocate?
Yes.
If the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot hadn't been triggered, then all the buttons that were being pushed would be pushed by whoever it was that was controlling the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And so, of course, they would know what buttons were pushed and in what order, because it would be a third party outside the aircraft doing the pushing. And for people that are not aware of the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, they certainly should be, because there was a YouTube put out on the 8th of March of 2014. It was put out for the benefit of Malaysia. It was put out the same day that Malaysia 370 went down. Supposedly it didn't go down, but the media story is that it did. And the name of that YouTube, if anybody wants to watch it, and I did not make the YouTube, but the title of the YouTube is Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot. I've had hundreds of conversations where people say, if there's a Boeing uninterruptible autopilot out there that's deployed, why haven't we heard about it? That's a fair question for every airline and every major media source, because the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot was acknowledged by Boeing itself on the 3rd of March of 2007 in London. And in addition to saying that, yes, indeed, we have an uninterruptible autopilot and it is deployed, they went one step further and they said within 3 years it will be deployed on every airliner in the world. 2007 plus 3 years is 2010.
Yeah.
So they, Boeing, the airlines, the FAA, which I think that if I had the luxury of being able to point the finger at any entity, I'd point it at the FAA in the United States of America. The administrator's name is Michael Huerta. I've communicated with him one-on-one directly since March of 2010. Everything I know, he knows. And yet these autopilots are still killing people. The other entity that I would say is even more complicit than the FAA is the Airline Pilots Association of the United States of America. It's a union.
Yeah.
And the reason I say they're more complicit is they've known about this since December 10th of 2006. They've also committed a fraud upon the court, my allegation, in a case called Civil Case 1:08-1600, which they caused Judge Rosemary M. Collier to dismiss. And in my estimation, that was a fraud upon the court, and the guilty parties would be the Airline Pilots Association, who claim that safety is their priority. And while safety has been their priority, we've now lost 13 airliners bearing the signature of the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot FADEC, which FADEC, Full Authority Digital Engine Controller, and ATI. ATI is Air Tranquilizer Injector, and that's where if this room were the cabin of an airliner and people started getting nervous in this room, a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas could be introduced into this room through the cabin pressure system, and it would make us all relaxed. Or if they gave us a bigger dose, it would make us all asleep. And if they cranked up the dose even further, it may make all of us dead.
Of course, some people have been talking about the uninterruptible autopilot since before 2006, because wasn't it ex-German Minister